Hi, I'm Stefan Aiskens, SharePoint MVP. The goal of this video is to show you how you can leverage oData from within SharePoint using the built-in data factory. For that, I'll show you two demos. One demo showing how you can create an advanced search on user profiles, and another demo which is a kind of social web part that enables you to, or your, let's say, customers to interact with their colleagues. The source code is available on my blog at silverit.com. Before going really in the demo itself, let me give you a few details about the context. So I had to implement that kind of web service in a real world project because the business scenario required me to to have several components reacting differently according to some values in the user profile. And so we needed something fast, and the best way I found to make something fast was actually to make an oData service that is based on the cache, let's say cache store. So instead of targeting directly the user profiles, so like here, we are actually consuming the user profile from the cache itself, which is of course much faster. And combining the cache with oData can really give great results, because oData is, let's say, a query engine. It's a protocol, but you can benefit from a powerful query engine, and certainly for querying user profiles. So before going further in the demo, I can maybe show you, for those who might not know oData, you can visit oData.org to see a bit what's behind oData. But actually, you have a lot of URI conventions, and so oData is mainly, let's say, based on RESTful services, meaning that you can actually use a lot of query filters, let's say, in the query string, and so that's quite powerful. And that piece of work is done by SharePoint itself. So oData is not, of course, a SharePoint specific product. It's a protocol that is also implemented in SharePoint. But the built-in data factory of SharePoint makes it easy to use oData within SharePoint. So it's already used actually out of the box with the listdata.svc, let's say the new web service. Not that new anymore, but that is actually already using oData behind the scenes. So the goal of the demo here is to see how you can make a custom web service that is actually implemented a bit the same way than listdata.svc, but to query cache, so the cache instead of querying the SharePoint list. So let's go to the demo first. I created two pages with two components. The first component is a component that shows me randomly some colleagues. So if I refresh the page, I'll have different colleagues here shown. I can just refresh it there. You see already that's pretty fast. So I don't know if I showed you, but I have 10,000 profiles in my system. So it's quite a reasonable amount of profile. And so you see it's pretty fast. So already when you see that, you can imagine that you could never reach that kind of rapidity, let's say, with the built-in, or with the SharePoint search, for instance, or by trying to really access the user profile store. So that's one of the let's say the feature you can have easily with that kind of web service. I'll show you how later. And for instance, another feature that is actually part of the same web part and part of the demo is that when you start typing, you see it's very immediate. You can see a list of colleagues that are actually who have BR in their last name or first name. And you see that it's even including the notion of social distance. I'll try to explain you how I did that. And you see that social distance, so it will search your colleagues, and for instance you can put the conditions you want, but for instance in that case it's people who added you as a colleague, or people who are in the same department than you. But you could decide to choose entire network, and then you see it shows everything. So you see it's pretty fast. If I created a lot of dummy users. So for instance, if I take entire network here, you see that I've got 1001 users who are called user something. And you see that it was very fast to give me the answer. and I have paging here, you see, so it's going from 20 to 30, from 30 to 40, and so on. It's again very, very fast. So that's the big benefit. That's why I wanted to show you first kind of application, and then so that you see what is the interest before diving into the code. Let's go to another demo, which is an advanced search, let's say, page on user profile. So here I just put a few properties, and so I can say, for instance, give me all the user profiles who have who the last name starts with A, or the last name, let's say, starts with B. So I will make a starts with, and then I can hit search, and then you see I have the results. It's again also pretty fast. So let's add, for instance, a third condition to have paging here. So to say start with C, I can make search. You see it's also very, very fast. So to have the results, and that is not bad. I can, for instance, let's make another query. Say I will take all the people whose department is, and then I put executive, for instance. You see I also have autocomplete for some properties. So here in that example I only implemented autocomplete for department and job title, but it really lists you all the values that are within the user profiles. So for sure you will not have a department that is not referenced in at least one user profile. So you see it's pretty fast, and it helps people to find better results, let's say. So I could say, for instance, I could say job title equals, I don't know, maybe do we have engineer or something that would make sense for that department. So, and let's hit search. So okay, here there is no result, but so you've understood the principle. You see how many operators I have here. It's actually all the supported operators from oData, and well, there are also some functions, string functions, that are not here, but at least you have the main, the most important operators, and you can build a query dynamically with and or. So now that you've seen a bit what kind of applications you can do with that is very fast. Let's go to see how it has been built. So coming to the code directly. So okay, let me clean a bit some. Okay, so the services class is that class here. So when you actually build a DO.NET data service, actually it's like any DO.NET data service. So there is nothing specific in that part for SharePoint. So you have actually to build a class, make it derive from data service, and pass, let's say, the context, which I will show you in a moment. Here, this part here just says, okay, I wanna expose all my operations here and all the entities in read. Something I've not shown you, I should show you that maybe first, it will be more clear afterwards. If I go to this page, you see that this is actually my endpoint for my web service, and I implemented user profiles and other methods I will show you after. And then you see here I just made a query with last name equal my name. Yeah, I don't want to return everything, because with 10,000 profiles the browser would take ages to load everything in the content. But to see the principle, so if I say I just come here, you see that I have actually three methods. As I told you, it's a bit similar to listData.svc. Of course, it's less advanced here. It's just targeting user profiles and read only, not read write. But the principle is the same. So you see here, you can just call indeed the user profiles, and then say, for instance, that you want to just take the first 10 records. You see, it's just returning the first 10 records. And in the subset, actually, you have here, it's the important part is the end properties. You have all the properties you wanted to get out of the user profile in that case. So okay, so here that class here shows, actually says, okay, just make all my methods available in reading to everybody. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then it actually takes data context. Let's go to data context. Data context is actually where I have my method implemented. So remember, I had user profiles, department, job title. So user profiles, what does it do? It will just take all the user profiles out of the cache. I will not go into the cache stuff, so you will look it as you will look at it yourself in the when downloading the source code, because it's not very complicated, but it would take too long to explain here in the video. But basically what it does is just take the profiles out of the cache. If there is nothing in the cache, then it performs a SharePoint search query on the people scope, take all the profiles with the properties I need, and then saves it in the cache. Here in the example, I think I've hard-coded to stay in the cache, let's say 10 minutes, but that's of course demo code, so you can change that as you want. But what is important to remember here is that in the data context, and that's the more specific already to SharePoint, is that what I return is an iCreable, let's say, collection of user profile objects. And usually when you'll see examples on oData services, you'll see that it's most of the times coupled with entity framework, and entity framework behind as a database. Here I don't have a database. I'm querying the cache, so I don't want to deal, let's say, with a database, so I didn't work with entity framework. But so the only thing you need to remember, if you don't want to work with entity framework, is and then with a database and so on, is just that you have to return an iCreable list of objects to oData. Then behind the scenes, the oData layer, let's say, will actually get all the user profiles from the cache in that case, and will apply the filters and so on itself. So all that complex part actually is handled by the factory itself. So that's the big advantage. The two other methods are just for let's say the autocomplete in the search center on department and job title, because oData unfortunately doesn't support group by operations. So actually I made two extra methods and implemented group by in those methods server side. So that's a kind of tip I used to work around that limitation. There are APIs to extend oData, but okay, they don't want to make it more complex. So okay, so that's one part. Maybe it's still part of the service, it's the entity itself. So in that case, I created, let's say, an entity called user profile object. This is actually deriving from my, let's say, caching system. So I'll not dive into that. But basically what you have to remember here is that here you've got a data service key. So this is, let's say, mandatory, so that oData knows what is the primary key of your entity. In that case, I created one that I call ID, that it's just an increment. And all the other properties are just data members, that's it. So, and here, what I did was just to let's say, yeah, here it's indeed how it constructs the data. So here, when it comes to here, it means that the data does not live in the cache, and then it makes a search query, as I told you, and it takes and it returns all the results. By the way, I just noticed that here you see 20,000. That's something I will probably remove to 2,000 or something, because maximum limit of search is 10,000. So if you want to try that, I think I will just change that in the source code, otherwise it will crash on your system if the maximum limit hasn't been extended. But okay, that's another story. I'll try to change that.